Marlon Brando. Most of us know him as the Godfather, right? But did you know that Marlon Brando was expelled from school twice, that he was arrested for illegal fishing, that he had trouble memorizing his lines, that he turned down an Oscar because American Indians were treated unfairly, that he broke the jaw of a paparazzo who pissed him off, that he wrenched his friend's ashes from his family, that he had many lovers and at least 11 children. A life story that is never boring.
Action.
All on this channel. Enjoy watching. Marlon Brando Jr. was born on April 3, 1924 in Omaha, Nebraska, as the only son of Marlon Brando Sr. and Dorothy Pennebaker. His father was a salesman who often traveled out of state, and his mother was a stage actress, often away from home. His mother's absence resulted in Marlon becoming attached to the family's housekeeper, who eventually left to get married, causing Brando to develop abandonment issues. When Brando was only 6 years old, the family moved to Evanston, Illinois, where Brando mimicked other people, developed a reputation for pranking, and met Wally Cox, whom he remained friends with until Cox's death in 1973. In 1936, his parents separated, and Dorothy took her children to Santa Ana, California. 2 years later, they reconciled, and Marlon Sr. purchased a farmhouse in Libertyville, Illinois. Brando attended Libertyville High School, excelling at sports and drama, but failing in every other subject. Consequently, he was held back for a year, and with his history of misbehaving, he was expelled in 1941. Brando's father sent his son to Shattuck Military Academy, where he himself studied before. There, Brando continued to excel at acting until 1943, when he was put on probation for being insubordinate to an officer during maneuvers. He was confined to the campus, but sneaked into town and was caught. The faculty voted to expel him, although he was supported by the students who thought expulsion was too harsh. Brando was invited back for the following year, but decided instead to drop out of high school. Brando followed his sisters to New York, studying at the American Theater Wing Professional School, part of the dramatic workshop of the New School, with influential German director Erwin Piscator. He spent his first few months in New York sleeping on friends' couches. For a time, he lived with Roy Somlyo, who later became a 4-time Emmy-winning Broadway producer. Brando was an avid student and proponent of Stella Adler, from whom he learned the techniques of the Stanislavski system. This technique encouraged the actor to explore both internal and external aspects to fully realize the character being portrayed. Brando's remarkable insight and sense of realism were evident early on. Adler used to recount that when teaching Brando, she had instructed the class to act like chickens, and added that a nuclear bomb was about to fall on them. Most of the class clucked and ran around wildly, but Brando sat calmly and pretended to lay an egg. Asked by Adler why he had chosen to react this way, he said, "I'm a chicken. What do I know about bombs?" In 1944, he made it to Broadway in the bittersweet drama I Remember Mama, playing the son of Mattie Christians. New York drama critics voted him most promising young actor for his role as an anguished veteran in Truckline Cafe, although the play was a commercial failure. Early in his career, Brando began using cue cards instead of memorizing his lines. Despite the objections of several of the film directors he worked with, Brando felt that this helped bring realism and spontaneity to his performances.
When he had the big scene with Pacino in the garden, he leaned back into his lines on a tree.
He had him on a tree!
Absolutely.
In 1951, Brando brought his performance as Stanley Kowalski to the screen in Tennessee Williams's A Streetcar Named Desire. It earned him his first Academy Award nomination in the Best Actor category. The role is regarded as one of Brando's greatest.
Hey, Stella!
In 1952, Brando was smitten with the Mexican actress Katy Jurado after seeing her in High Noon. They met when Brando was filming Viva Zapata in Mexico, a fictionalized account of the life of Mexican revolutionary Emiliano Zapata.
Zapata.
Friends, Romans, countrymen, lend me your ears!
In 1953, Brando's next film, Julius Caesar, received highly favorable reviews. Brando portrayed Mark Antony. While most acknowledged Brando's talent, some critics felt Brando's mumbling and other idiosyncrasies betrayed a lack of acting fundamentals, and, when his casting was announced, many remained dubious about his prospects for success.
If it was so, it was a grievous fault.
In 1953, Brando also starred in The Wild One, riding his own Triumph Thunderbird 6T motorcycle. Triumph's importers were ambivalent at the exposure, as the subject matter was rowdy motorcycle gangs taking over a small town. The film was criticized for its perceived gratuitous violence at the time, with Time stating, "The effect of the movie is not to throw light on the public problem, but to shoot adrenaline through the moviegoer's veins." To Brando's expressed puzzlement, the movie inspired teen rebellion and made him a role model to the nascent rock and roll generation and future stars such as James Dean and Elvis Presley. After the movie's release, the sales of leather jackets and motorcycles skyrocketed.
Crazy man, crazy. Oh, man, that people's gone.
In 1954, Brando starred in On the Waterfront, a crime drama film about union violence and corruption among longshoremen. When initially offered the role, Brando demurred, and the part of Teriipaia nearly went to Frank Sinatra. According to biographer Stephen Canfer, the director believed that Sinatra, who grew up in Hoboken, where the film takes place and was shot, would work as Malloy. But eventually, producer Sam Spiegel wooed Brando to the part, signing him for $100,000.
No questions, take it.
Terry, take this job, please.
Marlon Brando's On the Waterfront.
Brando won the Oscar for his role as Irish-American stevedore Terry Malloy in On the Waterfront.
It's a wonderful moment and a rare one, and I'm certainly indebted. Thank you.
Upon its release, On the Waterfront received glowing reviews from critics and was a commercial success, earning an estimated $4.2 million in rentals at the North American box office in 1954. Brando met actress Rita Moreno in 1954, and they began a love affair. After the abortion was botched and Brando fell in love with Tarita Teriipaia, Moreno attempted suicide by overdosing on Brando's sleeping pills.
Would you fasten your seatbelt, please? We're about to land.
Years after they broke up, Moreno played his love interest in the film The Night of the Following Day. Brando was briefly engaged to the 19-year-old French actress Josanne Mariani, whom he met in 1954. They broke their engagement when Brando discovered that his other girlfriend, Anna Kasfi, was pregnant and went on to marry her instead. Brando and Kasfi had a son, Christian Brando, in 1958. They divorced in 1959. Brando and Jean Simmons were paired together in the film adaptation of the musical Guys and Dolls, 1955. Guys and Dolls would be Brando's first and last musical role. Time found the picture false to the original in its feeling, remarking that Brando sings in a faraway tenor that sometimes tends to be flat. Appearing in Edward Murrow's person-to-person interview in early 1955, he admitted to having problems with his singing voice, which he called pretty terrible.
Marlon, how's your singing voice? Any good?
Well, I was quite surprised when I first heard of that. Have you ever heard the mating call of a young yak?
No, I haven't, but I could imagine it.
It's pretty terrible.
Relations between Brando and co-star Frank Sinatra were also frosty. Frank Sinatra called Brando the world's most overrated actor and referred to him as Mumbles. The film was commercially, though not critically, successful, costing $5.5 million to make and grossing $13 million.
Now, when I think of what you want in exchange...
Lovely ladies, kind gentlemen, pleased to introduce myself. Sakini by name, interpreter by profession.
In 1956, Brando played Sakini, a Japanese interpreter for the U.S. Army in post-war Japan in The Tea House of the August Moon.
Sage in bloom is like perfume.
In Sayonara, which was in 1957, Brando appeared as a United States Air Force officer. And in 1958, Brando appeared in The Young Lions, dyeing his hair blonde and assuming a German accent for the role. In 1960, Brando married Movita Castaneda, a Mexican-American actress. The marriage was annulled in 1968 after it was discovered her previous marriage was still active. Castaneda had appeared in the first Mutiny on the Bounty film in 1935, some 27 years before the 1962 remake with Brando as Fletcher Christian.
Marlon Brando is Fletcher Christian, an officer and a gentleman, a lover.
They had 2 children together, Miko Castaneda Brando and Rebecca Brando. In 1961, Brando made his directorial debut in the western One-Eyed Jacks. The picture was originally directed by Stanley Kubrick, but he was fired early on in the production. Paramount then made Brando the director. Brando portrays the lead character Rio, and Carl Malden played his partner Dad Longworth. Paramount expected the film to take 3 months to complete, but shooting stretched to 6, and the cost doubled to more than $6 million. Distracted by his personal life and becoming disillusioned with his career, Brando began to view acting as a means to a financial end. Critics protested when he started accepting roles in films many perceived as being beneath his talent, or criticized him for failing to live up to the better roles.
Mr. Ambassador, Tyler, sir, NBC. Would you give us a statement for a delayed telecast to the States?
Previously, only signing short-term deals with film studios, in 1961, Brando uncharacteristically signed a 5-film deal with Universal Studios that would haunt him for the rest of the decade. The Ugly American in 1963 was the first of these films.
Policeman was pistol whipped until his face looked like raspberry jam.
It just simply doesn't apply. And we were the most rapacious, aggressive, destructive, torturing, monstrous.
Brando was also a supporter of Native American rights and the American Indian movement. The March 1964 fish-in protest near Tacoma, Washington, where he was arrested while protesting for fishing treaty rights, won him respect from members of the Puyallup tribe, who reportedly dubbed the spot where he was arrested Brando's Landing. Throughout the late 1960s and into the early 1980s, he had a tempestuous, long-term relationship with actress Jill Banner. All of Brando's other Universal films during this period, including Bedtime Story, 1964, The Appaloosa, 1966, A Countess from Hong Kong, 1967, and The Night of the Following Day, 1969, were also critical and commercial flops. Brando portrayed a repressed gay army officer in Reflections in a Golden Eye, directed by John Huston and co-starring Elizabeth Taylor. This role turned out as one of his most acclaimed in years.
Is my name?
No.
The filming of Mutiny on the Bounty affected Brando's life in a profound way, as he fell in love with Tahiti and its people. He bought a 12-island atoll, Tetiaroa, and in 1970 hired an award-winning young Los Angeles architect, Bernard Judge, to build his home and natural village there without despoiling the environment. During the 1970s, Brando was considered unbankable. Critics were becoming increasingly dismissive of his work, and he had not appeared in a box office hit since The Young Lions in 1958. In 1972, Brando's performance as Vito Corleone in The Godfather, Francis Ford Coppola's adaptation of Mario Puzo's 1969 best-selling novel of the same name, was a career turning point, putting him back in the top 10 and winning him his second Best Actor Oscar.
He says there's no chance. I'm going to make him an offer again.
Coppola had developed a list of actors for all the roles, and his list of potential dons included the Oscar-winning Italian-American Ernest Borgnine, the Italian-American Frank DeCova, John Marley, the Italian-American Richard Conti, and Italian film producer Carlo Ponti. Coppola admitted in a 1975 interview, "We finally figured we had to lure the best actor in the world. It was that simple." That boiled down to Laurence Olivier or Marlon Brando, who are the greatest actors in the world. Coppola's handwritten cast list has Brando's name underlined.
Like a man! What's the matter with you?
Although Brando's performance was fiercely criticized by critics, Brando won the Academy Award for Best Actor for his performance, but he declined it.
What is that nonsense? Ridiculous.
After George C. Scott for Patton, he became the second actor to refuse a Best Actor award.
Marlon Brando in The Godfather.
After refusing to touch the statue at the podium, she announced to the crowd that Brando was rejecting the award in protest of the treatment of American Indians today by the film industry.
That he very regretfully cannot accept this very generous award. And the reasons for this being are the treatment of American Indians today by the film industry.
The actor followed The Godfather with Bernardo Bertolucci's 1972 film Last Tango in Paris, playing opposite Maria Schneider. But Brando's highly noted performance threatened to be overshadowed by an uproar over the sexual content of the film. Brando portrays a recent American widower named Paul, who begins an anonymous sexual relationship with a young, betrothed Parisian woman named Jean. In 1973, Brando was devastated by the death of his childhood best friend Wally Cox. Brando wrenched his ashes from his widow, who was going to sue for their return, but finally said, "Marlon needed the ashes more than I did." Brando earned a reputation as a bad boy for his public outbursts and antics. On June 12, 1973, Brando broke paparazzo Ron Galella's jaw. Galella had followed Brando, who was accompanied by talk show host Dick Cavett, after a taping of the Dick Cavett Show in New York City. He paid a $40,000 out-of-court settlement and suffered an infected hand as a result. Galella wore a football helmet the next time he photographed Brando at a gala benefiting the American Indians Development Association in 1974.
And the eyes of Cleopatra.
In 1976, Brando appeared in The Missouri Breaks with his friend Jack Nicholson. The movie also reunited the actor with director Arthur Penn. Critics were unkind, with The Observer calling Brando's performance one of the most extravagant displays of ma grand-mère since Sarah Bernhardt, while The Sun complained, "Marlon Brando, at 52, has the sloppy belly of a 62-year-old, the white hair of a 72-year-old, and the lack of discipline of a precocious 12-year-old.
We ain't gonna do it because I said we ain't gonna do it!
Brando was known for his tumultuous personal life and his large number of partners and children. He was the father to at least 11 children, 3 of whom were adopted. Brando portrayed Superman's father, Jor-El, in the 1978 film Superman. He agreed to the role only on assurance that he would be paid a large sum for what amounted to a small part, that he would not have to read the script beforehand, and that his lines would be displayed somewhere off camera. It was revealed that he was paid $3.7 million for 2 weeks of work.
And author of this insidious plot.
In 1979, Brando starred as Colonel Walter E. Kurtz in Francis Ford Coppola's Vietnam epic Apocalypse Now. He plays a highly decorated U.S. Army Special Forces officer who goes renegade, running his own operation based in Cambodia, and is feared by the U.S. military as much as the Vietnamese.
Who do not know what horror means.
Brando had a long-term relationship with his housekeeper, Maria Cristina Ruiz, with whom he had 3 children. After appearing as oil tycoon Adam Stifel in 1980's The Formula, which was poorly received critically, Brando announced his retirement from acting. However, he returned in 1989 in A Dry White Season. Brando received praise for his performance, earning an Academy Award nomination for Best Supporting Actor and winning the Best Actor Award at the Tokyo Film Festival.
I'm afraid that my counsel to you is to just give it up.
Later performances, such as his appearance in Christopher Columbus' The Discovery, 1992, for which he was nominated for a Raspberry as Worst Supporting Actor, The Island of Dr. Moreau, 1996, in which he won a Worst Supporting Actor Raspberry, and his barely recognizable appearance in Free Money, 1998, resulted in some of the worst reviews of his career.
You want me to list the ways I can burn you? We either work this out.
In 2001, unlike its immediate predecessors, Brando's last completed film, The Score, was received generally positively. In the film, in which he portrays a fence, he starred with Robert De Niro.
I set up from the beginning.
Brando's notoriety, his troubled family life, and his obesity attracted more attention than his late acting career. He gained a great deal of weight in the 1970s. By the early to mid-1990s, he weighed over 300 pounds and suffered from type 2 diabetes.
Hollywood has lost one of its greatest actors. Movie star Marlon Brando has died in a Los Angeles hospital. He was 80 years old. Today, fans and those who knew him are remembering his remarkable career.
On July 1st, 2004, Brando died of respiratory failure from pulmonary fibrosis with congestive heart failure at the UCLA Medical Center. The cause of death was initially withheld, with his lawyer citing privacy concerns. He also suffered from diabetes and liver cancer.
Nobody can die, so you have to pretend you're dying.
Shortly before his death, and despite needing an oxygen mask to breathe, he recorded his voice to appear in The Godfather: The Game, once again as Don Vito Corleone.
Alas, this is also business. It's so unfortunate. It's really unnecessary.
Brando was cremated and his ashes were put in with those of Wally Cox. They were then scattered partly in Tahiti and partly in Death Valley.
You think you're too good for me.
Brando was one of the most respected actors of the post-war era. He is listed by the American Film Institute as the 4th greatest male star whose screen debut occurred before or during 1950. He earned respect among critics for his memorable performances and charismatic screen presence.
Their fight for independence to be part of our own, then we drive them to seek understanding in some other place.
The winner is Marlon Brando on the Waterfront.
Subscribe to this channel to be the first to hear about new videos. And for much more, support here with a volunteer membership. See you in the next video.